little closer than some may have expected, but a strong opening to the second half made the difference. All that and more, including takeaways, reaction. The Auburn Tigers get another win.
This is happening in Auburn, Alabama. We're a football school, but we're also an everything school.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. And for some of you, as this is the live edition, maybe your second listen of the day. Recapping this Auburn basketball win with me, as he does every game, Darrell Dapprich, and Auburn defeats the other Tigers of Texas Southern 72-56. And to me, Darrell, the biggest thing about this, and we've seen, this isn't the first time we've seen this from this Auburn basketball squad. Starting the second half as strong as they did, to me, that was the difference in this one.
It is, and there's a trend with that. It just seems like every game this year, other than maybe Winthrop, they got out to a big lead in Winthrop and just extended that in the second half. But South Florida, George Mason, it got too close. I mean, South Florida, Auburn trailed. So, I think that what you can pinpoint that is one word, and that's depth, especially when you're playing these lesser opponents. Now, I don't know, if you're playing an SEC team that's got the same kind of depth that Auburn does or can run 9 or 10 bodies at you, if you're going to see that kind of separation in the second half. But while Auburn's playing teams that don't have the depth that they do, it's absolutely, science. In the second half, they're going to extend leads because they're wearing you down with how many bodies they can throw at you.
I'm there with you. I think we saw some really nice moments from several different players on this team. But you said it, and Joe Champy said it several times throughout the SEC Network Plus broadcast, Darrell. Texas Southern couldn't handle the 10-man rotation. Oh, and that's without Johni Broome. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But just this 10-man rotation, and you're going to see them be able to do that to SEC teams this year. Maybe not the top 3 or 4 teams, but there's going to be teams in conference play they can't handle Auburn's 10 to 11-man rotation.
And the key is it's not just a warm body that you're throwing out there in a 10 or 11-man rotation. So I've seen some teams over the years throw 9 or 10-man rotations, and that particular person that comes in just has a role. They just eat 7 or 8 minutes. They give the starters a rest. They may get a couple rebounds. The rotation that Bruce Pearl throws at you is a rotation of multiple scorers. Okay, so it's not just I'm going to throw a guy out there to eat some minutes to give my starters a rest. It's 3 dudes that were practically invisible against Winthrop, Williams, KD Johnson, and Chris Moore. They're your big 3 tonight with how they score the basketball. And the guys, Wendell Green, of course, Broome didn't play, but 2 guys that you got so much out of last game didn't contribute, and Auburn still gets offensive production. Now, again, as you said, closer than I think it should have been.
Sure.
There's no excuse to have 20 turnovers against a SWAC team. There's no excuse to only rebound a SWAC team by 2. And there's no excuse against a 1-4 SWAC team to be only up by 2 at halftime. Now, that could be because Broome didn't play, and he's a difference maker. We saw that tonight, how valuable he's going to be to this basketball team. But still, 3 different dudes stepped up during this game and were your leading scorers that weren't the last game. And that's what I mean about real depth. You can talk about that transparent or that fake depth where you're just throwing bodies out there. But real depth is when you have a rotation and everybody scores. And that's what you're getting right now with Auburn.
Yeah, I still want to point out, and you mentioned this, a 1-3 team, and now they're obviously 1-4, but Auburn's the 3rd ranked team that they've played this year, right? They just got boat raced by Houston earlier this week, and then
Texas Tech. Texas Tech. Now
they
did beat Arizona State, who just beat a really good Michigan team
by
last
1 point.
night.
It was a close one.
Yeah,
but this is a team that won a championship in their conference.
They were a tournament team. They were another NCAA tournament team. And they've been to the NCAA tournament out of the SWAC 2 out of the last 3 years, I believe. So, yeah, I mean, they're a SWAC team, but they're a tournament team. They went to the NCAA tournament, and again, they beat Arizona State, albeit in Houston and Texas Southern's home floor, and then got boat raced by, I think, Houston and Texas Tech. So I just, I think what happened was Auburn really was not going to let Winthrop sneak up on them and was prepared to play that game like it was a tournament team. And then tonight, I think they just, to be honest with you, without Broome and they got on the floor, they just looked a little lackadaisical, like they took this for granted a little bit. And then in the second half, they ratcheted it up because Texas Southern did the worst thing you could do. And, they made Auburn angry with that trash, crap, and dirty play. And so they woke them up. And then once you get the intensity, once Auburn plays with that kind of emotion, they're very difficult to beat. And so,
defensively, they're just going to be able to shut you down.
And go into the basket. They go to the basket like a demon possessed when that happens. But again, I still want to see better shooting. And Joe Champion made a good point. He said, don't worry about that. It's early in the season, and there's no team in the country that's shooting better than 30% right now that's a top 25 team. Now, I don't know. I haven't dug into those stats.
Devin Cambridge, speaking of Arizona State,
well,
former Auburn Tiger, he's shooting 46% right now.
He went 3 for 3 against my alma mater, the Northern Arizona Lumberjacks, where I matriculated, and they're a Division I AA school. But anyway, he is contributing.
Yeah, all right. I'm seeing a few comments asking about where was Johni Broome. So it sounds like I don't know when this happened, but it sounds
practice against Katie Johnson.
Yeah, it was knee-to-knee action.
At practice.
With Johni and Katie Johnson.
Yeah, in practice.
It's semi-humorous that Katie is fine. I think that's just kind of who Katie Johnson is. But yeah, I don't think it's serious. It sounds like it was just blunt impact. And so he should be okay. It's not related to his ankle, which is huge.
Don't you agree, Zach, if this was an SEC game, Broome would have played?
Probably, yeah.
I think he plays. I think he would have played. I think this was a precautionary thing that you should be able to beat Texas Southern without your starting center, especially with what, as you texted to me during the game, what Cardwell did and how he's emerging and had a good night. Again, his statistics don't necessarily jump out at you. He did have 6 points and only 2 rebounds, but he was perfect from the field, and he only played 20 minutes. Some of those minutes went to stretch.
He played his normal game. He just started. I mean, everything else is pretty. I mean, if I told you that Dylan Cardwell came off the bench, played 20 minutes, scored 6 points off 3 of 3 shooting, you'd be like, oh yeah, okay, cool. That's a normal game.
I'd like to see that rebound total a little higher.
Higher than 2. And just watching it, I didn't really feel. I felt like he was contributing more on the boards than that. So that's a little surprising. But the 3 blocks certainly helps.
They do. And I'm going to tell you, I'm really starting to warm up to, and I'm so happy for the way Chris Moore is playing. He was one of those guys that I just felt like, and I don't mean this disrespectfully at all, it's just kind of was an afterthought to me coming into this year. I expected Flanagan and Westry to take all his minutes, and he is an integral part of this team. Yeah. He's hitting threes. He gets rebounds. He had 7 rebounds. He had 14 points in 22 minutes. His shooting perfect from the free throw line, 3 of 3, 3 of 4 from behind the 3-point. I mean, just did everything well. 3 assists. So the minutes that he is giving Bruce Pearl right now, I consider to be what I would have to think Bruce Pearl considers them bonus minutes, because I don't think we could have looked into a crystal ball and seen Chris Moore contributing and playing the way he did. So I love it. I'm happy for him too.
I thought Chris Moore was going to transfer after last season. I thought he was gone, especially with Westry coming in. We thought Westry was going to kind of primarily be the 3. No, he's a starter. He deserves to be a starter. He looks more effective on the offensive side than when Allen's in. And I think his minutes are going to stay about whether how many minutes he played 22 minutes.
He played 22. I think that he is going to be a guy, you nailed it, that's going to start the rest of the year, is going to play anywhere from 18 to 22 minutes, and is going to be, we're going to look at the end of the year and go, wow, are we fortunate that he didn't transfer, and he's an integral part of this team.
Yeah, so last year I was talking to somebody on staff, and I asked about Chris Moore, like, hey, we're not seeing as much of him. And he's like, yeah, Chris Moore is still important because, sure, he's going to have his minutes, and last year I think he was playing like 6-8 minutes a game. Nothing crazy. but they were like, Chris Moore is the dude where, like, if you're about to go into a fight, you want Chris Moore with you. Chris Moore is the dude who's going to go in and rough up the other team and rough up the whoever you're kind of squaring off against. And I was like, I thought that'd be KD. And he's like, yeah, no, KD's scrappy. He's got the energy. But as far as like, who do you want like fighting with you? You want Chris Moore. I'm like, okay, that's pretty interesting. And I think you're starting to see that a little bit, right? You see it on the defensive side. You don't see it as far as him attacking the basket as much. He's more of a shooter than I expected him to be so far. 3 of 4 from 3. Are you kidding me?
And he hit a 3 at the top of the key, and he hit a 3 at in between the key and the corner. We've seen him hit corners threes. So he's kind of hit threes all around the arc. And then the other thing about him, he's a throwback. And what I mean by that is we talked about last week how this new age of college basketball, these freshmen come in and contribute right away. And it's not like it used to be in the 80s and the 90s where you had to kind of, pay your dues. And then by the time you were a junior, you really started to get significant minutes and started to play really well. Well, that's what we're seeing with Chris Moore. He's one of those guys that you looked at that after 2 years in the program, and this being his third, gets it now. It's coming together for him. That's how it used to be. It's not like that anymore. It's instant gratification. These kids from these AAU programs and everything, they're expected to play right away.
Folks aren't leaving Bruce Pearl's program.
No, he's a throwback. And see, that's the difference between the schools that were really successful and were able to sustain the success over a decade or two, is because you look up, and of course they're going to have their one and dones, but you're also going to see some core guys, 3 or 4 core guys that started as freshmen and graduate together as seniors. And as their collegiate careers progress, their minutes go from 10 to 15 to 22, and their points go from 3 or 4 to double digits. And Chris Moore and Jalen Williams are both examples of that.
Donaldson will be one too.
And Donaldson will be one too. And, it's just I think that you always have to have those guys that stay in the program for a while and start to blossom and progress and get better, because they become your glue guys. They become so important.
Well, and that's how you win a championship, is you got a time where you have your veterans, and then you also, you get a lottery pick or two to come and it's like,
mix in with them.
Great. Yeah. I mean, that's what last year's team missed, right? Like last year's team missed this year's Jalen Williams, right? Like they had the spark with Jabari and Walker coming in. They didn't have that, anything to really ignite. They didn't have anything to help take that next step. So I think that's certainly a part of it. Folks in the comments are asking, and keep the comments coming in, guys. Really appreciate it. Ask about like what Broome's impact would have been here. Ben Johnson asks, if Broome was in tonight, what do you think the score at half would have been? 20 of 27 TSU points were in the paint. Just watching it, Darrell, to me, it didn't really seem like it was all on Dylan. I think there were other guys. I think guys were just kind of getting lost in the paint. Would Johni have helped with that? Sure. I certainly don't think there would have been an issue.
He's the eraser of mistakes. When you get lost on defense, he's there to bail you out. So Ben makes a great point. Because that Nicholas dude had 10 rebounds at halftime. Okay. And I'm here to tell you, I may not know much, but I can almost cod-lock guarantee that joker ain't getting 10 rebounds at halftime if Johni Broome's in the game.
That's a good point.
And they're not getting 20 of 27 in the paint if Johni Broome's in the game. So great observation, Ben. I think that game's maybe 7 or 8 at halftime because of it's a plus minus thing. It's why we like this stat so much. Broome's going to give you some offense that you didn't get when Stretch was in the game, when he ate some minutes up. Broome's going to give you some offense, and he's also going to erase some points for you defensively. So you start to net that out, and it's maybe a +7, +8, and that's where Auburn maybe would have been up 8 to 10 at halftime.
Yeah. All right. I'm seeing a few questions about Chance Westry. I want to get to Chance Westry in a second, but first I want to talk about KD Johnson. 16 points, led the Auburn Tigers, 4 of 8 from the floor, 2 of 5 from 3. And look, we were texting about this throughout the game, Darrell. KD Johnson, everybody knows this. Every Auburn basketball fan, every person that likes watching KD Johnson play basketball, we all know this. It's fun for guards to be shooters. That is not who KD Johnson is, despite him being better from 3 tonight. But KD Johnson, you look at it, it's like, well, okay, with the stats you just read, 5 of his 8 field goals were from beyond the arc. What are you talking about? Well, he was 6 of 7 from the charity stripe. He got to the free throw line many times, and those are when he attacked the basket, and those attempts don't show up in the stat sheet. His impact on offense, we all know what he can do defensively. He's a great defender. That's not up for debate. But his role in the offense and just what the offense looks like when he's attacking the basket, it's just night and day, Darrell.
It really is. And when he finishes like that around the rim, he's so hard to stop because he has that really, really explosive first step. And then I feel like Auburn, the rest of the team feeds off that because you've got an opportunity in that scenario to get a lot of N1s because people rotate late over and he's already at the basket. So there was an interesting stat that was thrown out during the broadcast that I think epitomizes what KD Johnson's game needs to be. And as far as adjustments, at one point during the game, Auburn was 1 of 8 from the 3-point line and 5 of 7 everywhere else. So if you're a seasoned, mature basketball player and you know that, or you're your coaching staff and during your timeout, you're like, guys, attack the basket more. We're shooting it at 70% attacking the basket. Go away from the 3 right now. And I get it. Bruce Pearl, that's his offense. He's never going to go away from that. I just would love to see in-game adjustments from a team standpoint and an individual standpoint. Someone like KD that says, you know what, I'm not hitting threes real well, but I'm going to go ahead and go to the basket instead. I'm going to go ahead and still score the basketball because the threes aren't falling, but my goodness, around the rim is, and they're giving that to us, and we just need to take that. That's what needs to happen from a standpoint, I think, overall, and from an individual player standpoint. So KD Johnson can kind of lead that charge. He can make that happen if he goes ahead and just leads by example and keeps taking the basketball to the rim.
Yeah. Sorry, dear, I couldn't hear what you just said. Just then, my internet went out for a second. But
no, it's okay. I was just talking about the overall, KD and the whole team feeding off that. If the threes aren't falling, change strategically and go to the basket.
Right. Okay. Like we promised, we got to talk about Chance Westry. Every Auburn basketball fan's favorite player to talk about right now. And Russell, was it you in the comments? Somebody asked if Westry should be more aggressive. And so my question is, naturally, I think my gut is yes, Darrell, and you may agree, but my question is, okay, he played 17 minutes and he shot the ball 5 times. I don't know what more you want him, do you want him shooting at a higher clip than that? That's him touching it like every other time he touches the basketball, right?
Yeah, one of those shots too, little deceiving shot clock running down, and he had to throw it up from the logo.
That's a good point.
So that was, he'd be 2 of 4. I think that it's hard to get inside the head of an 18, 19-year-old athlete and understand how everybody reacts to injuries differently. I do know that the kid played really, really well in Israel, and the knee injury and the knee surgery came out of nowhere.
Sure.
And I also think that the knee surgery, I think he was out a little bit longer than maybe a lot of us would have anticipated. So maybe he's just trying to feel his way, and he's a little tentative right now until he gets 3, 4, 5 games under his belt and he trusts the knee. I'm telling you, psychologically, we just don't – everybody reacts to things differently, and they respond to things differently. I'm not saying it even bothers them. But there's that tentativeness of, okay, and it'll come. And I still think basketball shape as well. I think that you saw that on the missed dunk. And that was another one of his field goal attempts. He just didn't get high enough on a dunk on the baseline. So, if that goes and he doesn't have to shoot a shot from the logo, then it's a whole different deal. So I think I predicted on the last podcast against Winthrop that 2 weeks from last Tuesday is when we'll see the real Chance Westry, and I think he'll be back from a conditioning and basketball shape type of situation, and I'm holding myself to that.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, this kid is playing. I mean, it was his second ever college basketball game. It's gonna take time, and there were some folks that think, okay, maybe he's a lottery pick, but I don't think so. I think this is a 2-year player, and then he goes. I hope I'm proven wrong. All right, let's talk about Wendell Green. Shot the ball less than he typically does, Darrell. Scored just 4 points on the night. Didn't get to the free throw line, which is a bit unusual. Still got his rebounds, still got his assists. But he had 5 turnovers. This wasn't a good game for Wendell. His plus minus was still okay, but any cause for concern, or was it just, hey, this is just kind of what college basketball is?
Not really. I think as long as you have somebody else in the backcourt that can pick up the slack, and again, it could be this team, Wendell Green will score more than he doesn't when this year's out. But if you look at what KD Johnson did, scoring 16, and then Zep Jasper gets 8.
Yeah.
Okay. I with 17 minutes, I like that 8 points. So, from a guard standpoint, you got probably 4 more than Zep has been averaging, and 6 more than KD's been averaging. So it picked up, that whole situation, they pick each other up. As long as everybody doesn't go cold. And here's where Chance Westry, as the season goes on, will even be more important. Let's say Wendell Green does struggle, and let's say Zep isn't hitting his shots and he doesn't have 8 to 10. Well, then Chance Westry, if he gets into double digits, he picks up the slack. That's the beauty of having 4 in the backcourt and just rotating him in and out, and being able to with Katie and then Trey coming in off the bench to provide a spark. I mean, I'm trying to look at his minutes. He had 12 minutes. That's good for him. I think 10 to 12 for Trey Donaldson his freshman year to get baptized into SEC basketball. I like that a lot.
0 for 3. I think that's not going to be a normal thing for him.
And he's got to hit because they're going to start sagging on him. You saw it tonight. They're not going to respect the outside shot, because we already know he can dribble, drive, penetration. He's a beast inside. He's athletic. He's physical. They'll start sagging on him and forcing him, daring him to make perimeter shots, and he's going to have to if he wants to be the point guard he wants to become.
Yeah. He hasn't really shown the world, excuse me, what his offensive game is yet. So that'll be interesting to see that develop. Steven says Darrell's such a pro. Internet goes out and he knows what to do. Absolutely. Absolutely. Garrett saying, I'm good with Wendell getting the bad game out of his system tonight. Yep, nothing wrong with that. Ben saying, worst thing I saw from Green tonight was that 3-point throw up from half court. And I mean, we talked about it before, right? Logo win. And that was it worked against Winthrop. I'm with you. I'm not a fan of those shots. I wasn't a fan when Jared Harper did it, but Bruce Pearl's clearly okay with it, or he would have put a stop to it. So I'm curious to see what that looks like moving forward. But shot selection's always been a thing for me when you talk about Wendell. But like every now and then, like what happened against Winthrop, it works. And it's like, okay, that's why you let him do it.
I remember getting so frustrated watching Samir Dowdy and some of the shots that he took with shot selection. And I would go, why in the crap isn't Bruce Pearl pulling him off the floor and making him take better? And it's just, it's not the way he does it. It's not the way he runs his team.
I waited for that for forever with Harper. And then it's like, oh, he led us to a Final Four run. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, Bruce will stay with those guys, and he'll let them have the creativity to do what they want to do. And, at the end of the day, it's a great recruiting technique because you can show film and kids talk on the AAU circuit.
Yeah.
And they're going to say you've got the freedom in a Bruce Pearl offense to make mistakes and keep shooting it because he'll let you. And so you're not looking over your shoulder.
Well, I talked to Zeb Jasper about that on Friday's show, this morning's show, Darrell. I don't know if you were able to listen to it. But
I
asked him about that.
First listen I have every morning, man. Why would I not listen to it?
I love
Did that even before I was a part of this, right?
I love it. No, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
but we talked about that, right? I was like, what's it like being a guard playing in the system? And of course he loves it. Of course he loves it. Why wouldn't you love knowing that you have the green light at all times from your head coach?
And that's why I think Auburn just signed the Holloway kid, who's a great player. He's every bit as good of a player in high school as Westry was. And he's a good shooter. He'll have the green lights. Why a kid like that signs.
Yeah.
A couple of the kids that came in on recruiting visits that are guards in the 24 class. So I think I think that at the end of the day, kids talk, kids know, and that's Bruce's reputation. That's why he's able to get good guards.
Garrett says, Darrell, don't talk about headband Samir like that.
He drove me crazy. I loved, by the time he left, that's what was so unfortunate. When COVID shut that year down, he was playing his best basketball.
The whole team was.
Against Tennessee in Knoxville, that last game when Auburn boat raced them by 20 on the road, getting ready to go into the SEC tournament, he was playing out of his mind. Defensively, offensively, they were clicking. And it's just unfortunate. But it took me a while to warm up to him and to kind of trust him, on the floor. And at the end of the day, he became one of my favorite players to watch. He was really, with Okoro, he was really, McCormick, that team was coming together. They were really coming together.
No, I loved Samir. I wanted Samir of him at Auburn, but it didn't happen.
You're really punny tonight. Let me tell you, you came on and talked about something about Auburn showed us more. I thought that was a reference to Chris Moore.
Sure.
Right. And then you have two guys hit knee on knee in their bones, and you said that was humorous. So I thought of the bone, right? And so I'm like,
I don't think I said that. I don't think I said that second
You
one.
said humorous. You did. You said that's humorous.
I did, dude. I didn't think about that.
Yes, you said that's humorous, and I thought Zach is on a roll. He's
dad
so
jokes
funny.
are just embedded inside.
Well, now that you're going to be a two-time champion.
Right. Double dad action.
Yeah.
Hey, Clay is booging, and I love it. Auburn will be the best team in the country at some point this year. Let's go, Clay. Hopefully it's at tournament time and not midseason like last year.
This is our man Clay that we sat with, Zach, at the game.
Oh,
yeah, big Clay. Good.
What's up, Clay? Dude. Thanks for hanging out with us on a Friday evening.
I agree. I think Clay knows his basketball. He's been an Auburn basketball fan for a long time, and that's what you hope for. He has
great tickets, by the way.
He really does. He really does. That's what you hope for with a Bruce Pearl coach team, is that they start to play their best basketball. Because I remember even the Final Four team, until they won that game at Georgia when Shuma hit that big three, they were struggling. They would win 2, lose 1. They just were not. They were not getting on any kind of rhythm, and then they did. They caught fire. So his teams have a tendency to do that. And look, when you're playing 10 or 11, isn't that the absolute, I guess, motive when you're playing 10 or 11, that it's going to take a little while for 10 or 11 to gel, and then once they do, it's going to be dangerous.
Yeah. All right. Jesse says wants to see the team shoot fewer threes than last year. I know that's not Pearl's offense. But then, Jesse, you say this, but they're sub 20% 3 out of 4 games, starting to be a trend. They were the first game. I don't think they've been below 20% since that first game. They definitely weren't against Winthrop. And then tonight from 3, they were 33%.
They were 40%, 39.5% against Winthrop.
Yeah, and then I think in the second game they were like 20. Yeah, I think they were like 23% in the second game, which is
they were horrible.
I'm not defending that, but the last 2 games it has been better. Probably against worse opponents. I actually think Winthrop's going to end up being. I think Winthrop's going to have a good year. And it's impossible to know about this Texas Southern team because they've only played like ranked teams, and they're not going to.
That's all they do. That's what the SWAC does. They play those money games. And they don't really. You'll see a team get to the tournament, and they were like 2-10 before they got into conference play. I've said it. I said it, and you kind of went, whoa. You were taken aghast by it when I said if Auburn shoots 35% from 3-point land, they'll win 28 games. And I'm sticking to that. That's all they need to do.
You count SEC tournament and NCAA.
No, just SEC tournament. Just SEC tournament. I think they win 26 in the regular season, and I think they win a couple in the SEC tournament if they shoot 35% or better from 3-point line. Go ahead and write it down. You can do it.
No, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. I'm just thinking – I'm more okay with that now than I was a week ago when you said it, because I've been not as impressed with some of the teams that are kind of projected to be in the same spot as Auburn. Like you think about Tennessee losing to Colorado, which Colorado just boat raced.
Texas A&M
100 against A&M.
They did. They looked really good in the Pac-12. That was surprising to me. But think about this.
I texted our Locked On College Basketball host, and if you're into college basketball national show, we just launched it on the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On College Basketball. But I texted those guys. I'm like, you got to do a segment arguing for, does Colorado have the best resume in college basketball? Because I think you can make it right now with 2 ranked wins.
Well, Texas A&M, though, they lost to Murray State two nights ago. So they had –
as of right now, though, when they beat them, they were 24.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Auburn can go 4 of 11, 3 of 10, and say, okay, three-point shot isn't working. Right. Let's attack the rim and shoot 20 free throws and be 50% from the field and get a lot of bunnies and win a lot of games. And that's still only shooting 30 to 35% from the three-point line.
I agree with you. My question is, and we saw this last year, and we said the same thing, and we never did it. That's my only reason. Because we shot 20 to 25 threes a freaking game. If you're shooting 35%, isn't that who we are though? Like, isn't that what a Bruce Pearl offense is?
It's not what we have to be. You could be that.
I'm with you, man.
And you can still just balance. I'm just saying a little bit of a happy medium. Shoot it 15 to 20 times. And if you've only made, let's say at the end of the first half you're 2 of 10. Then we'll still shoot some in the second half, but let's work on getting it to the rim, go to the free throw line a little bit more, and see what happens to us in the second half if we can extend a lead or whatever we need to do. I think that's the difference. If you're shooting 30% and you're chucking 25 threes up, that's going to get you beat. If you can get that under 16, 15, that threshold, and get your points elsewhere, free throw line, inside the paint, that kind of thing, mid-range jumpers, you'll win a lot of games. Scoring the basketball. And I think that's what we were getting back to, that point where Auburn's other players can feed off KD if he buys in to that approach.
Yeah. Noah points out that Texas Southern has not tweeted out the final score yet. So Auburn fans have not been able to meme bomb them. I'm sure they're like,
they are notorious slow on their social media anyway.
They may be short-staffed. I mean, they're a smaller program. That's
okay. That's just
fun fact. The Locked On HBCU host and the Locked On Longhorns host, both Texas Southern grads. We were texting earlier today. So
wow.
Cool. And I told them, I'm like, look, I think giving y'all 24 points in Vegas, courtesy of our friends BetOnline, if I was putting money on that, I would have put money on Texas Southern plus 24, and I would have won. So
yeah, I didn't think that. I thought that was high. I thought it was going to be 18,
24
20
points. That's a lot.
I've seen this team a lot during the years of my affiliation with Alabama State. Johnny Jones coached at LSU for 5 years, so he's not a scrub. They play physical. They've got a little bit of a reputation. I'll just leave it at that. They play hard, and listen, they get a lot of D1 transfers. The kid that Walker played at Texas A&M, and they have 2 or 3 other guys that played, major college basketball that they get transfers. They got 3 or 4 on the court that were D1 guys. So, that obviously makes a difference. And that team basically looked like the same team last year. They're pretty veteran laden team.
Yeah, I mean they've got a solid chance to win the SWAC again. So maybe this turns into a quality win, and a win against a tournament team when you're looking at, is Auburn going to be a 5 or a 6 seed? Maybe we'll see. 4G just went up. 4G AU asked, what do you guys think Westry's ceiling this is? Garrett, a few comments later, said Westry's ceiling is a lottery pick. I think by the definition of ceiling, I agree. Now, is that likely? I don't know. I don't think it is this year. And Anthony says Westry needs to stay 1 more year. He's not ready yet. And it's like, it's so early. We've seen him play 2 games. I don't think, just right now, as we talk about this on our live show, Darrell, on November 18th, 2022, I don't think he'll be ready by the end of the year. I don't think he'll be like a first-round pick if he were to leave after the season. But the answer to the question, what's his ceiling, I think it is a lottery pick.
Yeah, I want to see a little more. I think just it's hard to project that, but I think his ceiling is definitely potentially a first-round pick, and I would think that would be next year. I do think he needs to stay 2 years. Now, my opinion could completely change with a lot of leaps that players make from their freshman to their sophomore year. Right now, again, we got to see him in basketball shape.
Yeah,
what he can do in basketball shape, and it's going to be hard, Zach, to determine somebody's ceiling and see what they could become as far as a lottery pick because of the amount of minutes you have to share. Mm-hmm. This reminds me so much Again, I don't, this may sound blasphemous. I'm talking about from a minute standpoint, not a sharing of the basketball and scoring standpoint. The Dean Smith North Carolina teams of the 80s, Dean Smith would tell people, if you want to come here and average 20 points a game, it ain't happening. Mm-hmm. We've got too many studs, too many guys to share minutes and share points. And Michael Jordan bought into that, and that's why Michael Jordan wasn't, scoring 30 points a game like Len Bias was. So that's that team basketball. We've got a lot of guys that share a lot of minutes and a lot of different share the basketball and score. Somebody different every night. So Westry, to me, to be a lottery pick, would have to be like Jabari was last year. The dude averaging, the guy, the high scorer every game. And I don't see anybody doing that this year. I just think it's going to be somebody different every night.
Yeah. Or at least show traits, right? Like show traits of, just being able to
that's a great point.
Over people. Yeah.
NBA drafts on potential a lot of times.
Yeah, they love traits.
They love potential
more than production.
Yes, more than production. So that's true. They can look at that and say, hey, this guy projects as a guy in a year or two that's going to be a great contributor. So you're right. It's not all about stats like it used to be.
Darrell, with your familiarity with the SWAC, do you know the answer to this question? AJ's asking, is this Jordan guy anything, or did he just have the game of his life?
He's a good player. He's a good player. Yeah, he's not. That wasn't fluky.
Senior. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, that wasn't fluky. He's been a contributor for a few years now. Yep.
Yep. All right, and most people are agreeing with what you're saying about Chance Westry. So, any other players tonight that you don't think that we haven't talked about Jalen Williams that much. I mean, it's just kind of the patented,
We said it. We said we're going to quietly. We're going to do the next broadcast. We're going to talk about what Jalen Williams had 14 and 7, and that's exactly what he had. So, and he had an opportunity, I think, to have probably at least 2 more baskets and get into the 18 range. Really good overall game by him. Chris Moore. I was disappointed with Trehor's game tonight. I wanted to see more from him. He was invisible.
Forgetting about him.
Yeah, he was invisible tonight. Disappeared.
Has he had a moment yet this year? And once again, it's young season. We're 4 games in. Mm-hmm. But has he had a stretch yet where you've been like, there he is? I don't think
the exhibition game that you and I went to, he looked great. And I was like, oh, yeah, I see where all the hype's coming from. He hit a couple threes. He had like 12 or 14 points. And I thought, okay. And yet that was an exhibition game, exhibition against Alabama Huntsville. Yeah. In the other 4 regular games, he just hasn't stepped up yet. So look, we can talk all we want about the Westry ceiling. Trehor's a kid that as a freshman.
I think Trehor has a higher ceiling than Westry. Mm-hmm. But so far with what we've seen, and what were his numbers tonight? Let's see.
He had 5 points.
He had no points.
No points. Okay.
No points across 12 minutes.
That's first of all, I would have expected more minutes from him. But again, I know
he had 4 fouls. He was in foul trouble.
And the NBA drafts on potential, but would it be such a bad thing if he didn't show out either and he came back next year?
Oh my God!
I mean, my goodness! I mean, think about that backcourt.
Can you imagine Aiden?
Him? I know.
And Chance and another
Trey
with
and Trey Donaldson. And Trey Donaldson.
Well, you're still going to have Wendell next year. You'll still have Wendell and KD next year, too.
Yeah.
The only guard you're losing is Zepp after this season.
And Broome can come back next year. He's a junior, I believe.
Are you sure?
Look, I don't think he's a senior. I think he's a junior.
That's interesting.
We need to check that before we go off there because I like being accurate. But I thought he was a junior because of the COVID year.
Well, you actually got fact checked a second ago.
With what?
Somebody said that Jordan had a 30.1 points per game average.
Well, yeah. I mean, I said he was, and that goes in line with what I said. It was no fluke, right?
I think you were talking about Michael Jordan. When you're talking about the UNC thing?
Oh, Michael Jordan scored 30 a game in North Carolina? No way. No way.
Here it is. For GAU, Jordan career points per game.
Not in North Carolina.
Somebody fact check that for us.
We'll check. Yeah, someone fact check that
because I want to be correct here on Locked On.
Yes, we do. We want to look at Johni Broome, and we want to look at. I mean, I could Google that real quick. That's not good live broadcast thing, but I don't think Jordan averaged in his career 30 a game. I don't. And he played 3 years. He came out his junior year, right? I think he did.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think there is no way that I don't think he did. I mean, and if I'm wrong, I will say I am wrong. 17.7 points a game over his 3-year career. Just Googled it. Just Googled it. During his 3 seasons with the Tar Heels, he averaged 17.7 points a game on 54% shooting and 5 rebounds.
Dude, so we were both wrong on Johni. He is technically
a sophomore.
He is a sophomore.
Well, yeah. So I thought he was a junior, but then with the COVID year, he goes back to a sophomore.
And Jesse just points it out. Broome played 2 years at Morehead State, but one of those doesn't count because it was during the 2020 season. So that's
awesome, dude. I'm telling you what, sweet.
Yeah. So this
Jordan may have averaged, and I think our man may be confused. Jordan might have averaged 30 in the NBA. I would think over his career he did.
That almost seems low.
Yeah, but I knew he didn't even average 20 in college, and that's because of Dean Smith.
30.1 is total career. Thank you for AG or for GAU. Appreciate that. But yeah, Jalen Williams, his last 2 games were questionable. I was like, what's going on? And so I'm glad he was able to figure it out tonight. 2
kids that I'm so happy for as an Auburn supporter is Chris Moore and Jalen Williams. And I mean, I just, I thought there was at a time last year after the season ended, there was a little bit of a fear that I had that both were going to enter the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
And because Jalen Williams went from being a starter 2 years ago to a quality reserve last year because of Kessler and Jabari Smith both coming in and playing post positions. That's rare that a guy loses his starting position and then comes back, doesn't pout, and doesn't leave. That speaks volumes about the kid and his character. And I think it's going to be a big payoff for him at the end.
Did you see what Chris Moore's stats from 3? What he's shooting from 3 this year on the season now?
No, I did not.
60%.
See, and I mean, I don't know how often he's shooting it, but that's an example of analytics looking at that and saying, CMO, shoot the ball a little more, kid. You're hitting it. You're feeling it. Go ahead. Green light. Shoot it more. Shoot. If you want to take a couple more threes each game, do it. And that's where analytics comes in. And you can look at that, break it down, and see what he's shooting and say, hey, you've got room to shoot more. I mean, 6 of 10. I mean, I'd like to imagine if he was 12 of 20.
It'd be stupid.
Separation, right?
You kill everyone that we've played if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, and really there hasn't been. The South Florida game was the closest game, and that was, this game tonight felt close, but at halftime, I just never felt like it was in danger. I just was expecting it to get to 20 to 25. It did get to 20.
There was about 3 minutes left, and it's like, oh, is Auburn going to cover? And it's like they didn't.
Yeah.
But
didn't they get to 22? Was that the highest, their biggest lead?
20? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And then I think they had a 3-point play or something. It's
in the lane, that goofy dude. Yeah,
that's exactly what it was. Yeah. But I was just at halftime. I was so confident that we were going to blow them out in the next 8 minutes. I don't know why. And then obviously it happened, but I was just so confident that was going to happen. Not that we were going to wear them down over the second half. I just knew we were going to win the first 8 minutes of the second half. I just knew it.
Yeah, that's been this team's their whole DNA, right? I mean, they just done that a lot. And even last year in some games, I can remember the Ole Miss game at Ole Miss when Auburn's like, okay, they're going to have their first SEC loss. They were down 8. They weren't shooting the basketball well. They came out in the second half and absolutely blow Ole Miss out. And it's just, that's been the stamp, that's been the DNA and the trademark of this team is they really play well in the second half. And they were doing that even when their depth wasn't insane like it is now. So, look, they played, 10 or 11 tonight without Broome? So what's that going to look like when Broome comes back as far as the amount of players that they're able to run at you?
Yeah, I mean, it's at 11.
It'll be a reoccurring theme throughout the whole year. And I don't think – now, I know that a lot of coaches start to shorten their bench once conference play starts. I just don't think this team's going to do that. I think you're still going to see 9, 10 guys. Donaldson may get less minutes.
He's still going to play.
But he's still going to play.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see this continue to be the way this team plays. And this will be their their strategy going into to conference play. And when they go over and play in that tournament too, we'll see when they start to play at Washington, at USC. Washington, a team that got beat by Cal Baptist.
Yeah, USC doesn't look very good either. They lost to like Ken Palm, like 300th or something.
But dude, Cal Baptist. I think they're not an NAIA school, but they used to be. Someone can fact check me on that. But that's terrible to lose to. I mean, that's just.
Yeah. So two more comments, Darrell. Then we'll put a bow on this. And if
Sure.
you're watching live right now, or later, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube, or if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, leave us a review. It means a ton. Russell saying unstoppable lineup: Westry at the 1, KD at the 2, Traore at the 3, Jalen at the 4, Broome at the 5. Have we seen Traore at the 3?
Yes.
I don't know if we have seen that.
We have.
It hasn't been much then.
It has not. It's been Flanagan nor Chris Moore were in the game, and he was playing alongside Broome, and maybe he wasn't at the 3. Maybe he was at the 4 then in that scenario.
Yeah,
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell with the sets that Bruce Pearl runs sometimes, but I think that lineup all be unstoppable, and I think at some point I still like Wendell Green on the floor and his maturation, the way he's played this year. I think he's the guy that makes the car go. He's the engine that makes the car go.
Yeah.
I think when he's going, that team is really, really tough to beat when he's scoring 14, 16 a game.
Yep. And then last question, just because I think this is fun, we'll zoom out just a bit. Garrett asked, who's the best team in the SEC right now? A lot of teams trying to figure it out. I know it's really early. I still think it's Kentucky. I'm not turned off by what, their double overtime loss to Michigan State. I mean, they certainly looked like the better team, and then their best player fouled out. Now, granted, their best, Oscar Tshiebwe, he's allowed to foul 15 times, and they only call 5.
That's true. He could have fouled out last year for this year's game. The thing about the SEC, I still want to see Arkansas play. They scare me. This thing about Arkansas and Musselman and the players he's getting and that style, I wonder if maybe they are right now. And so, I think they're undefeated. I know they struggled with one lesser team, but I think that they're a team with the bodies and the style that they play. See, they remind me a lot of Auburn with their energy and their coaching enthusiasm and how they come at you and run at you and all that. And he's building depth there. Don't like him as a coach, don't like him, but I mean, it is what it is. I can't wait to get
least favorite basketball behind Cal. Probably hate Cal the most.
Cal's third for me. Mine's
I may
Musselman.
just like Musselman more than Cal. Now that
Musselman and Nate Oates are ahead of Cal for me. I'm just telling you. I mean, I'm just being honest.
No, I mean, Nate Oates isn't exactly like
these Locked On Auburn listeners don't want me to sugarcoat it. I got to speak truth, right?
No, and they're not going to fact check you on that because they probably
that's an opinion. That's a feeling right here.
Guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Please like
this has been fun, man. We gave them their money's worth tonight, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was so smooth. I forgot to read ads, so I got an ad-free show. Darrell, how can people check out everything you got going on, buddy?
Well, you can follow me as long as Twitter stays alive and doesn't go down at DAP6410, and then on Monday mornings. With good, WANI, our good friend Ben Taylor.
Yep. Auburn Opelika this morning. Yep.
I'm going to say that right this time. Auburn Opelika this morning, not good morning, Auburn Opelika. I just say that to everybody when I come on the air. I say good morning, Auburn Opelika. But with Ben Taylor about 7:10 to 7:30, and then tomorrow night we got a little special something for our listeners and viewers for the post game, don't we? We
do. Yeah. They'll get that Sunday morning. That's right.
Yep. And so we're recording that tomorrow night, and they'll see it Sunday morning. It'll be it's just a little teaser, a little spoiler, a little different.
Something a little different. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Something a little different.
Yep. You can read all of my written work at auburndaily.com, and we'll be back Sunday morning, like Darrell said. This has been Locked On Auburn.